Hey everyone, and thanks for joining me for the first episode of Score to Settle, which is kind of like a season preview for what's coming up in Chronicles and Collecting. Basically, every time I get a big package of figures in the mail, I'll open them up, see what's here, maybe explain a little bit about the show, why I like them. Obviously, we're not going to actually open up any of the boxes of figures. That'll be for the main series. But again, consider it kind of like a sneak peek of what is coming up sort of eventually. If there's something you see here that you're really interested in, post in the comments or shoot a message or something like that. I'm sure I can get to it sooner or later. This guy I bought from Ami. They don't pay me or anything like that. That's just where I happen to buy it. And their logo is plastered all over the box. I got this a few months ago, so I'm pretty excited to get into it. I've bought a bunch of things since then, so I'm like vaguely aware of what it has, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, so let's open up this box. And we'll get in here. And also, this is a mix of new and used and some damage box stuff. So it's not all just going to be like figures from the last few years or anything like that. It's actually going to be stuff probably going back, who knows, 5-10 years. I think the Robot Spirits line is over 10 years old, and Chigoken line is over 20 years old. Alright, let's see what we got here. Very nicely packaged, which is good. Alright, what do we got first here? Alright. Master Gundam option set. I'm a big sucker for these option sets. I love the idea of you already have the figure, and here's like a bunch of really cool accessories to sort of recreate, one of the signature poses or signature scenes. I don't own a Master Gundam at this point, but I figure I'll pick it up and hope to pick up a Master Gundam cheap at some point. This figure, it's got this, this like cloak, kind of looks a little bit like Gundam Death Sith for anyone who might be familiar with Gundam Wing. G Gundam, which is the show where Master Gundam is from. It's kind of like a fighting show, but instead of fighting in person, they fight in Gundams. So it's got all these these punches and kicks that kind of make it look like they're, in action. So hopefully I'll pick up a Master Gundam soon and we could get into trying to pose that and see what's up. Next we have Gundam Double X, which is from the show Gundam X, which I actually really like a lot, though it does take some criticism. There is a intelligent talking dolphin who's a main character, who's a main focus of one of the episodes, which I think turns some people off, but it's otherwise not much of a very silly show. Gundam X, I guess, maybe didn't sell well or something, but it's not featured heavily in the Robot Spirit line. I think there's only like 3 figures, and they don't even actually have the Gundam X, just the Double X. See here, it's got these kind of like cool wings and these giant cannons. The idea is that there is a satellite on the moon that basically Gundam X interfaces to do its like most powerful attack, so it's got to stand still for a while, build up energy. The moon shoots some laser, and this like redirects it. Moon not included. Alright, here's one that I'm really pumped about. So this is the sedanju, which is one of the main enemy mobile suits from Gundam Unicorn. This is the real markings version, so I guess there's 2 versions of this figure. One is sort of like the regular one, base paint, which I'm sure is very nice. This one is kind of the real markings version, which means that it has some of these cool logos on it. It's got, a bunch of like model numbers. You can see it right here. Just all these markings, kind of equivalent to some of the stickers you might put on when you're building a model kit, or some of the paint details. I think that those extra details just give it a little extra kick. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I picked up the real marking version over the regular one. This is one of my favorite Gundam characters, certainly my favorite Gundam villain, because he tries to defeat the enemy using economics, in addition to giant mobile Gundams, but mostly with economics. which I think is, kind of a cool idea. The effects sets just keep on coming. This is the Wing of Light and High Mat Full Burst effect set that is from Gundam Strike Freedom, which is from Gundam Seed Destiny. Ooh, actually, let me double check if that's true. Yeah, this is the Gundam Seed Destiny. So basically, at the end of Gundam Seed, the main character, Kira Yamato, gets this like crazy Gundam called the Freedom Gundam. But naturally, in the sequel, they had to give him another new Gundam that's even more powerful so that everybody could buy new figures and buy new model kits. So they made the Strike Freedom. It's got these cool wings. In the show, they make some like reason why he needs the wings, where it's like, oh, it throws off the radar. It's like, well, it throws off the radar, but everyone could see him because he's got giant wings that are the size of his Gundam. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to defend them, but I think they look awesome. The Strike Freedom, this version, double check here. Okay, so these are the funnels. All right, so funnels are sort of these weapons. For anyone who's not familiar, I'll give kind of a quick. They're kind of these like, imagine these like remote Bluetooth lasers that sort of dock into your Gundam, and then you could fire them remotely, and they have like a certain radius, and you basically control them with your mind. So the Strike Gundam did not have funnels. The Freedom Gundam did not have funnels, but the Strike Freedom Gundam did have funnels. So the idea here is, you got these like lasers that are firing out of the funnels, and you can shoot them all at the same time. I think it also has a few so that, one of the Strike Freedom sort of signature poses is that he shoots all these lasers at one time. The Freedom Gundam, which was the predecessor to the Strike Freedom Gundam, was sort of like the first Gundam that could target more than one enemy at a time and fire. The main character sort of uses this more to disarm Gundams by shooting off all of their weapons and arms and cameras, rather than just kill them outright. So, even though he shoots like 12 lasers at one time, he's only like knocking down like 2 or 3 units. But I think the idea here is that you could pose it with not only, with him firing, he's got this beam that's coming out of his like body and a few guns, as well as all the funnels are firing at the same time. So here is the God Gundam options part set, and this is sort of the counterpart to the Master Gundam option part set. This is another, so God Gundam is sort of like the final Gundam that is received in G Gundam. In the opening sequence, it's standing on this like, I don't know what I would call it, an inverted windmill or something. So it comes with that, so you could have him stand on that. And it also has a bunch of the like punches and kicks and stuff like that. So I think the idea is that you take the God Gundam, you take the Master Gundam, and you have them, fight each other with punches and kicks, in addition to their other Gundam weapons. But this is kind of more of like a martial arts type fight. This one I'm pretty pumped about too. So Johnny Ridden, as best as I could tell, is basically just a Gundam character who was created for the sole purpose of creating new model kits, which, to be fair, is what most of the Gundam characters are created for. He's not actually in any of the series. Like, I don't know, maybe he's like in the background in one scene. If you blink, you miss him. I don't think he actually is, though. But he's in a bunch of like side story mangas and the video games. And I think the idea is that he was like the ace pilot for his side of the war in the original Gundam. He lived during that time period. So we got all these like special customized Gundams, which were different than the normal model kits and were adorned with his, signature identifications and poses. The main villain in the original Gundam is a character called Char, and sort of Char's trademark was that he had red mobile suits. As you can see, Johnny Ridden also has red mobile suits. I think that's sort of supposed to be like a running joke, so people constantly mix the two of them up, much to Johnny Ridden's, chagrin. In this particular figure that I got, he is piloting a Gelgoog, which sounds more like something I would get on a sandwich at an Italian restaurant, and less like a Gundam. but is cool. I was pretty pumped on playing a game called Gundam G Generations Genesis, a lot of G's in it for some reason, and it kind of covers the original Gundam storyline as well as all the side stories and the comics and the shows and the video games. And there's a lot of cool stuff, some cool cutscenes, but nothing that was too exciting except you're in a random battle in the middle of one of the sagas, and all of a sudden Johnny Ridden shows up. I think he might actually be piloting this suit. I was super excited about it. I recruited him later on in the game to join my team, so he's one of my 18 pilots on that team, so I'm pumped to have him on my figure team and in my figure shelf. Probably be seeing that one sooner than later. Let's see. What else we got here? Gundam Exia Trans Am. So Gundam Double O is not a show that I'm like a super big fan of. I mean, it's one of the most popular Gundams, but I think it's probably the most overrated, if not the most overrated. But it has really cool mobile suit designs, so we'll probably see a bunch of those on this channel. This is Gundam Exia in its Trans Am mode. So earlier I kind of mentioned Char Aznable, who's sort of one of the main villains in the original arc of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, and sort of one of his many gimmicks was that his version of every mobile suit was 3 times faster than the base model. And his was always red. And Japan has sort of run with this, I think, culminating in they had a credit card where the regular version of it gave 1x points, and the Char version of it was red and gave 3x points. Gundam Double O sort of took this and made it a major plot point of the show. So the Gundams in Gundam Double O are solar powered, and they sort of collect these solar particles, I guess, as they go about their day, and then they can release them in a big burst during battle, and they go into Trans Am mode where they turn red and they become 3 times as powerful. So naturally they had to create a bunch of Trans Am mode figures and models. I think Trans Am mode, I mean, it's an in-joke, but I think it's pretty funny. I like the way it looks. I don't know what this one looks like because there's no little sometimes there's like a little window where you can kind of get a look. So I'm interested. Some of them I know are a little translucent, some of them are a little darker. Judging from the picture, it looks like this one's going to be translucent. I also noticed that this one is some sort of collaboration between Robot Spirits and SH Figuarts, which is another really popular line of sort of more humanoid figures. So I'm not quite sure what makes this an SH Figuarts, but we'll find out when we unbox it. Alright, here's another option part set. Like I said, I love option parts. This is the XX01 Secret Super Weapons, Soul of Chogokin. So Soul of Chogokin is a line that I mentioned before has been going on for, over 20-something years, probably close to 25 years at this point. So recently they introduced sort of a sub-line called DC, or Dynamic Classics, where they're reproducing some of the earlier super robots, or giant robots, or transforming robots, but in kind of, just updated molds, updated, figure technology, maybe updated posing. And what's also cool about the Dynamic Classics is I think they have some sort of like standardized weapon parts, so they could all hold sort of similar weapons. So this is just a bunch of weapons that they could use. You can see on the front here we got Shin Getter 1, Shin Getter 3, Shin Getter 2, Grendizer, Mazinger. Some of these weapons are maybe not something I would bring with me to a fight. This one's like a giant magnet. This is a wrecking ball. I think probably most of these weapons would be used for construction, not fighting aliens or whoever it is these guys are fighting. But I bet there's some cool ones in here. I think I did a little reading on it. My understanding is I believe that this is sort of a tribute to some sort of like 60s or 70s figure line that was produced that was about robots that were used in construction. So I think this is supposed to be like a play on that. As far as I know, it seems like the majority of these weapons were not actually ever used by these characters. There's like a shooting fist and some other stuff, so I'm sure that was used. But it was like $20, so I figured why the heck not. Alright, this guy. This is from a show called Aura Battler Dunbine, which is a 80s show. I think it also had a pseudo sequel or prequel made some years later by the creator of Gundam, Tomino. It seems like it's pretty popular in the Robot Spirits lines because they make a ton of them. I don't know how to pronounce this name. It looks like it's Gilyor, maybe? I don't know, we'll call him that. I've played games that have these characters, such as the Super Robot Wars games that kind of combine the different robots and Gundams and whatever from different robot shows, but I've never heard this name pronounced. Hopefully I'll have seen the show by the time we do this unboxing. The reason I got this one in particular is because it has this cool shield and this sword. The styling of this figure is more of something, from like a fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings kind of thing, sort of juxtaposed with, the technology of a giant robot. So I thought that was kind of a cool, just the camera there just to drop. Thought that was a cool, I just thought it looked kind of cool and wanted to add it to my shelf. Alright, got a few more left here. This is the Hysterica from a show called Cross Ange, which I will nicely call a parody of Gundam Seed with only female characters. Well, with only female pilots. It's not a particularly great show. I don't know if I'd recommend anybody watching it. I watched it after, I got interested in it after playing Super Robot Wars, where it was kind of featured prominently. This is the villain of the show, and he pilots this kind of cool, like regal, purple with gold accents, mobile suit. The suits in this show transform into these like gliders. They like glide around with them, but just to the battles, they fight like giant dragons. Again, it sounds a lot cooler than it really winds up playing out. I don't know why they just don't always fly in this form. I'm sure there's some ridiculous reason. Maybe it's more gas efficient or something, but this guy looks cool. There's a few Cross Ange suits in the Robot Spirits line, so I think we'll probably be hearing a little bit more about that show as we go along. And finally, we got this big boy, which is the, should we get room for it here, the New Gundam full expansion set. That's the Greek letter new, not the word NEW. So the New Gundam is piloted by Amuro Ray, who is the main character of the sort of original Gundam era, and he fights for sort of the final time in a movie called Gundam Shar's Counterattack. In that movie, he's given the New Gundam, which has this, not entirely new, but this new type of weapon called a funnel, which we sort of got into before. This weapon is called a fin funnel, I think kind of for obvious reasons, sort of looks like a fin. It's actually not technically a funnel in Gundam lore, it's technically a bit, which is a funnel that has its own power source and doesn't need to be docked for power, but these actually do. I wouldn't worry too much about it. They look cool. If you buy the regular New Gundam figure, it only gives you half of the funnels, which is what he had in the movie. I always thought that, and then there's also a full fin funnel mode where he's kind of almost got like wings of funnels. I always thought it kind of looked cool with with just the one set of funnels. I kind of like the offset of it where you just have like one shoulder that's just like loaded for bear and the other one that kind of has nothing. I do like this sort of wing version where and you got more funnels. What I think is much more interesting about this is these effects. So he has like a funnel barrier that he creates to protect himself, and it's got these other kind of funnel attack parts, and it's got like an enemy cockpit, I think, that he grabs at the end of the movie. I won't get into the details of that for spoiler reasons. And then it's got kind of stands for everything, stands for the funnels and add-on pieces and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to this. Again, I'm gonna have to pick up a New Gundam so that I could have something to connect this to. but I think it'll be awesome. So that's all we got. Yep, that's all we got as part of this one. So thanks so much for checking out the first Score to Settle. Probably be one of these every month or so. Whenever I get kind of a big order that I think will be fun to take a look at. And again, if there's anything here that looks interesting, something you want to see me open, hint sedanju, hint new Gundam full expansion set, shoot me a message, post in the comments, and I'll make sure to get to that one sooner than later. Thanks so much. Please be sure to check out the other videos on the channel. We got some unboxings up. We got a channel introduction where I talk a little bit more myself and what the channel is going to be about. So please check those out and have a great one.